Kyuubi Chakra mode and Sage mode are both transformations that Naruto used a ton throughout the series. Initially, Naruto had to master Sage mode in order to stand a chance at beating Pain, a god that even Jiraiya couldn't defeat, and when they finally clashed, Sage mode definitely lived up to the hype, with it boosting Naruto's power so much that he pushed Pain farther than anyone else had ever done before, which is insane considering that mere weeks earlier, Naruto wouldn't have been able to hold a candle to him. But after Naruto defeated Kurama to unlock KCM, and then used it to take on the entire war front at once, including Itachi and Nagato, Sage mode quickly started to feel obsolete. At least before Kishimoto quickly proved that notion wrong by having Naruto beat the third Raikage using Sage mode right after Kurama's chakra failed to get it done. And then, in his first confrontation with Madara himself, Naruto went out of his way to use Sage mode as well, showing that it was still an extremely valuable part of his arsenal even after obtaining KCM. Naturally, with Naruto alternating back and forth between KCM and Sage mode, a lot of fans started to wonder which form was stronger. So in this video, I'm going to compare them in multiple aspects, including power, physical strength, sensory, speed, abilities, and drawbacks to find out what Naruto's strongest transformation at this point in the series truly was. Before we get into the video, I do want to clarify that I'm not going to be taking any increases of power Naruto gets after his fight with the Tailed Beast into account, since Kurama Link Mode obviously became his strongest form in that scene, and the power-ups only started to get even crazier from there. This means that Naruto's more mastered version of KCM, from after he teamed up with Kurama, and the ridiculous Sage mode feats that take place towards the end of the war, won't be considered here. Starting off, the first category we've got is power, which is essentially just whose ninjutsu packs more of a punch. Beginning with Sage mode, Fukasaku states that taking in nature energy massively boosts the potency of all of your jutsu, and the fight that showcases this the best is when Naruto tamed the Nine Tails. It is true that he had Kushina's help here, but even before she intervened, Naruto was actually doing a very good job at fighting half the Nine Tails. Specifically, Naruto's Rasen Shuriken was strong enough to pin Kurama to the ground and make him cry out in pain, which is something we almost never see him do. Plus, a point I haven't heard people bring up before is that when Kurama tries to get up after he's hit by the Rasen Shuriken, he actually falls back down to the ground, meaning the Rasen Shuriken genuinely did so much damage that the Nine Tails couldn't even stand up. And it's not just Sage mode Naruto's Rasen Shuriken that packs a punch either, because his Super Otama Rasengan Barrage was a ridiculously massive attack that also sent Kurama flying. It's a bit hard to see how many clones were a part of this barrage while it's happening, but there were 53 shadow clones visibly holding Rasengan before Naruto added nature energy to them, implying that the Sage mode barrage consisted of over 50 massive Rasengan. Keep in mind, it's stated that Jiraiya has to output the most chakra he possibly can to make one Super Otama Rasengan, even while in Sage mode. Meanwhile, Naruto can just pop out 50 like it's nothing. You can argue that Naruto has access to an abnormally large amount of nature energy while he's in the mindscape, since Naruto was sitting still the whole time in the real world, which allowed him to constantly absorb it even while he fought. But the problem with this is that Naruto isn't actually able to absorb more nature energy beyond his regular limit, since if he takes in too much, he immediately starts to turn into a frog. So, despite Naruto having constantly replenishing nature energy, he can still only hold the same amount as normal at any given moment, implying that Naruto should be able to perform every attack he uses in the mindscape at least once in the real world before his Sage mode runs out, which is consistent with the 4th data book stating that Naruto can use the Super Otama Rasengan Barrage whenever he's in Sage mode, rather than it being an attack that's exclusive to the mindscape. This means that Sage mode Naruto's feats of damaging Kurama with the Rasen Shuriken and sending him flying with the Rasengan Barrage are both valid feats to use. Don't get me wrong, Kurama is stronger than Naruto, and I'm not trying to argue otherwise, but the fact that he could damage Kurama at all still means that while he's in Sage Mode, Naruto is easily one of the most powerful shinobi to ever live. Switching over to KCM, while Naruto's in the form, he gains a massive amount of power from having access to a large portion of Kurama's chakra, which is considered to be incredible even by the likes of Tsunade, who had previously seen Sage Mode. In fact, people have made arguments in the past that KCM should be more powerful than Sage Mode solely due to the amount of chakra it possesses, since Naruto was shown pulling 6 tails of chakra out of Kurama in order to unlock it. And considering 6 Tails Naruto was shown clearly doing a better job against the Diva Path than when he was in Sage Mode, KCM Naruto having access to that amount of chakra should make him stronger than Sage Mode as well. But the problem with this argument is that Naruto didn't actually take 6 Tails worth of Kurama's chakra, despite it sort of looking like that in one panel, because we literally see on the very next page that the chakra Naruto was pulling on looked physically identical to Kurama as a whole and wasn't meant to represent a specific quantity of chakra he was taking. As for Naruto's feats in KCM, while they are impressive, it's pretty hard to link them back to Sage Mode. We see Naruto one-shot Mu with a planetary Rasengan, which did look pretty impressive, but it's not like Mu has particularly great durability in the first place. To be fair, KCM Naruto also destroyed Nagato's Chibaku Tensei alongside Itachi and B, despite the fact that it previously took 8 tails of Kurama's chakra to break out of an even weaker one, but it's hard to say how partially destroying this Chibaku Tensei would scale to harming Kurama himself. Because of this, I think Sage Mode actually has better feats by a pretty large margin. But this isn't really fair to KCM, because Naruto's never had the opportunity to fight someone as strong as half the 9 Tails while using the form. And Naruto does just say that he's a lot stronger than when he fought Pain to Nagato, which implies that KCM is a more powerful transformation than Sage Mode. Of course, it is possible to argue that Sage Mode got more powerful from the Pain fight as well, so the statement doesn't have to mean that KCM is stronger than it in the war arc, but I disagree with this argument just because Naruto never really trains his Sage Mode between fighting Pain and trying to tame the Nine Tails. The only time you can point to is right after the Kage Summit, where Naruto says he needs to make his Sage Mode last longer and starts to train it, but this only lasts for half a page, because Sakura immediately interrupts him in order to falsely confess her love, which ultimately resulted in Naruto never getting to train leading up to the war arc. So, since Sage Mode Naruto hasn't really grown in strength from the Pain arc, Naruto saying he's gotten a lot stronger should just be referencing how KCM is a stronger form. Just as a side note, I think it's worth pointing out that in the Japanese version of the statement written by Kishimoto, while Naruto does say he's gotten stronger, he doesn't mention that it's by a lot. So even though KCM is more powerful and takes this round, Sage Mode should still roughly be in the same ballpark since it does have better feats. Next up, we're going to be looking at physical strength, which includes lifting capacity, durability, and striking power. Sage Mode's physical strength boost has always been super apparent from the moment Naruto started using it. Since the first time he had ever entered the form, Naruto was able to lift a stone statue that he previously couldn't even get to budge in base. And after Naruto actually mastered Sage Mode, his strength went completely off the charts, being capable of picking up Kurama and then slamming him on his back as if he were a puppy. This is easily one of the most impressive strength showings in the entire series, and outside of 6 Paz characters, I think the number of shinobi who could throw Kurama like this with just their physical strength can probably be counted on one hand. Plus, Sage Mode's increase in durability is very substantial as well, since in the fight with Kurama, a shadow clone of Sage Mode Naruto could tank being slammed into the ground by his paw. Even at 50% power, Kurama is the strongest tailed beast by a large margin, so the fact that Naruto's shadow clone, which should be less durable than himself, can just eat Kurama's physical attacks is insane. Especially since we've seen that far weaker forms of the Nine Tails are capable of physically tearing through the Sannin like they're made of paper. As for Sage Mode Naruto's striking power, even though it probably isn't as impressive as his lifting strength or durability, it certainly isn't something to scoff at. In the fight against Pain, every time Naruto landed a direct taijutsu strike, the path he hit was either sent flying or outright destroyed. Yet, when Naruto's Sage Mode ran out during the fight, he was immediately put on the back foot even in terms of close combat until he could absorb more nature energy, which shows that the power of his punches and kicks are massively amplified when he's in Sage Mode. Naruto was also able to outright break Pain's Rinnegan rod with his bare hands, which is a pretty great feat considering that the rods were completely unharmed by a massive chakra explosion created by Four Tails Naruto transforming, implying that Naruto's basic strikes in Sage Mode are more powerful than his Four Tails V2 cloak. Even though KCM isn't as hyped up as Sage Mode in terms of physical strength, that doesn't mean that it's weak by any means. In terms of lifting strength, the best feat KCM Naruto has is holding open the Four Tails' jaw to prevent it from eating him, which is very impressive, especially since Naruto was pretty fatigued at this point from non-stop fighting in the war. But, in my opinion, even when taking Naruto's fatigue into account, this is still nowhere near Sage Mode's ability to throw around Kurama himself. To make things even worse, after KCM Naruto fell inside the Four Tails' mouth, he wasn't strong enough to pry its jaw back open, despite clearly pushing at full force, and resorted to making enough shadow clones for the Four Tails to throw him up instead. Lifting capacity aside though, I think the area of strength that KCM shines the most in is actually his durability, since Naruto could blatantly no-sell punches from the version 1 Raikage. And we know that even as a Jonin, before he provably had the full power lightning cloak, A was capable of slicing off the horn of the Eight Tails like it was made of butter. So considering that Naruto could blatantly eat attacks from a more powerful version of him, it implies that Naruto's durability is greater than that of the Eight Tails. However, things start to get really weird when you get into KCM Naruto's striking power, because to my surprise, he doesn't really have a lot of feats when it comes to dishing out punches. After Naruto first gets KCM, we do see him punch Kisame pretty hard, causing him to cough up blood, but it's important to remember that this is a heavily fatigued Kisame who was weakened by the B fight. That being said, this same Kisame could eat a hit from base Guy without bleeding, so this does prove that KCM Naruto hits harder than Guy without the gates. Although, even this argument doesn't do much for Naruto, because at this point in the series, all of Guy's best feats only happen with 5 or more gates open, which is stated to make him dozens of times stronger. So while hitting harder than base Guy is still fairly impressive, it's far from the greatest feat, especially by War Arc standards. This isn't the only striking feat Naruto has though, since he does fight on par with Edo Itachi in terms of taijutsu. But the problem with this is that Itachi hasn't been shown to have good taijutsu feats either, since he massively prefers to use ninjutsu and genjutsu. Even when fighting up close, Itachi normally just opts to use his sword most of the time, so honestly throwing hands with him isn't a great feat for Naruto either. In my opinion, if you wanted to make an argument for KCM hitting harder than Sage Mode, the best way would probably be to argue how he knocked down the Geto statue with an uppercut, but this does lack quite a bit of context. First of all, we see that prior to the uppercut, Kakashi pulls down the statue's arm with a lightning cable, and Guy attacks its foot to make it trip forward. So before Naruto even did anything, the statue was already falling towards him. Then, both Naruto and B come in simultaneously to knock the statue down with a double uppercut. So, putting the Geto statue on the ground was a group effort between Guy, Kakashi, B, and Naruto, which is why even though it is impressive, I don't think it's an insane feat for KCM's striking power, especially since the statue got back up 2 pages later. Due to this, I think the physical strength category should go pretty concretely to Sage Mode, since it has verifiably better lifting capacity and probably stronger striking as well, with the only part that's really left vague being durability. Moving on, The next category is sensory, which is just how fast and precise the forms can sense their opponents. To start, it's important to point out that KCM and Sage Mode both have very different methods of sensory. Sage Mode Naruto's sensory works by just generally detecting the surrounding chakra, whereas in KCM, he's particularly sensing his target's emotions, which does end up being a bit different in effect. For example, when Kisame was hiding inside Samehada, Naruto was immediately able to call him out the second he entered KCM, despite Kisame's chakra being identical to his sword's. This is particularly relevant because moments earlier, Naruto was in Sage Mode and literally linking his chakra to B's, but still couldn't tell that Kisame was 2 feet in front of him on B's back, which just goes to show that there are definitely situations where the sensory granted by KCM is better than Sage Mode's. And on the flip side, we also learned that when Naruto first encountered the Ten Tails, KCM couldn't be used to sense it because it had no emotions. So, until Naruto learned to fuse KCM2 and Sage Mode, he had to keep a Sage Mode Shadow clone on standby if he wanted to sense what the Ten Tails was doing. That being said, it's not like Kisame hiding in his sword or the literal Ten Tails are things that Naruto would have to go up against often, which is why the deciding factor of this category is just which form's sensory would be more useful in an actual fight. And by this standard, I think Sage Mode should definitely have the edge, because while he's fighting the third Raikage, Naruto blatantly states that its sensory is not only faster, but also has a wider danger sensing range. I've seen the argument that Naruto is just comparing Sage Mode to his base form here rather than KCM, and I couldn't disagree with that more, because at this point in the series, Naruto hasn't shown the ability to sense chakra in base. So, it only makes sense for him to say that he has a wider danger sensing range in Sage Mode if he's comparing it to KCM, since he doesn't have danger sensing at all in base. This is also consistent with how right before the scene, Naruto was literally using KCM to try to fight the third Raikage, which means that it was likely the form that was on his mind. And, even purely going off of feats, Sage Mode still has blatantly better sensory. Since Naruto could sense the entirety of the 4th Great Shinobi War that was happening across the entire continent from the extremely secluded Turtle Island. I think it's also worth pointing out that Naruto went out of his way to enter Sage Mode in order to sense the war in this scene, despite the fact that it's quicker to enter KCM, which just further implies that Sage Mode's sensory is miles better. There's not really much else to say here, since this is the only category that Naruto himself gives the direct answer to, which is a decisive win for Sage Mode. Next up, the category we've got is speed. When it comes to comparing how fast Sage Mode is to KCM, people are very quick to bring up the sensory statement I mentioned earlier, where Naruto says that his danger sensing is quicker in Sage Mode. I think it's fine to use this statement to say that Naruto can dodge faster attacks in Sage Mode, since having a quicker danger sense likely means that Naruto's reaction speed in Sage Mode is superior to KCM's, but it's also important to remember that Naruto never implies Sage Mode is faster than KCM overall. So in terms of punching and movement speed, this statement doesn't really tell us much. And if you look at the rest of the series, it's actually implied that KCM is faster than Sage Mode, since the Raikage says that he's the fastest shinobi alive, which Tsunade doesn't deny, despite seeing Naruto move at full speed to save her from pain. This is also consistent with the fact that Tsunade was previously surprised to see KCM Naruto move on par with the Raikage, which wouldn't make any sense if she thought he was already faster in Sage Mode. This implies that the Raikage is faster than Sage Mode Naruto, and since KCM Naruto blatantly outspeeds the Raikage, it should give a bigger speed boost than Sage Mode. Although, I will say that KCM probably isn't completely out of Sage Mode's league in terms of speed, just because the Raikage explicitly asked for Tsunade's help to restrain KCM Naruto. And later on, Tsunade was confident that she could take on the Raikage by herself, which would only make sense if the Sannin were at least somewhat capable of keeping up with that level of speed. So, Since Sage Mode Naruto has surpassed the Sannin, he should be in that ballpark of speed as well, even though this still doesn't change the fact that KCM is faster overall and takes this category pretty handily. Unlike the last two sections, this next category is a lot more contentious, since it's about which form has better abilities. Surprisingly, outside of Sensory, Sage Mode and KCM don't really have a lot of unique powers. You might be thinking that KCM Naruto has the mini-tailed Beast Bomb, but he never ends up actually being able to use it until after he teams up with Kurama to enter KCM 2, because Naruto didn't know how to get the correct chakra ratio that keeps the bomb from exploding in his hands. In the past, people have pointed out that B said Naruto successfully used the Biju Bomb a couple of times before he first entered KCM 2, but this is just a mistranslation, and what B actually says is that he managed to pull it off in training purely by chance, but next time he'll surely nail it. First of all, this statement only says that Naruto used the Biju Bomb once, rather than twice, and more importantly, B mentions that it was accomplished by chance, which implies that Naruto did it by accident. In my opinion, this is likely referring to how Naruto accidentally created a Biju Bomb in KCM when he was trying to make a Rasengan, and we see that it literally blew up in his face. So if this is what B's talking about, then the statement doesn't imply that Naruto can successfully use Biju Bombs at all. This means that the abilities category basically comes down to Sage Mode's Frog Kata, the Taijutsu style of the Mount Miyaboku Toads, versus KCM's Chakra Arms. Starting with the Chakra Arms, these things are essentially just chakra constructs Naruto can create from any part of his body that are even faster than himself. I say this because we see that Mu is capable of dodging KCM Naruto's normal attacks, and then states that his particle style is faster. But when Naruto goes to hit Mu with his chakra arms, he lands the blow before Mu can fire his particle style, implying that Naruto's chakra arms are above his regular combat speed. This is probably why Naruto sometimes chooses to use the arms as a grappling hook, like he's Spider-Man, because they're easily strong enough to carry him and fast enough to move quickly through the air. We've also seen that Naruto can make at least 6 chakra arms fire off Rasengan in all directions at the same time, which can come in handy for fighting multiple opponents at once. And when it comes to creating Rasen Shuriken, Naruto was able to use the chakra arms in place of 2 shadow clones, so it should be much easier for him to throw Rasen Shuriken on the fly while in KCM. Plus, if he wants to, Naruto can form tiny chakra arms to make a mini Rasen Shuriken, but considering that he has only ever used this once in the entire series, and realistically a normal Rasen Shuriken is better for almost every situation you can think of, this isn't really a great application of the arms. That being said, the chakra arms are still extremely useful overall, and a major reason for why KCM Naruto is so strong in the first place. However, on the flip side, Frog Kata is still very much broken as well. In the shinobi world, invisible nature energy is everywhere, and while Naruto's in Sage Mode, he can use this energy to extend the range of his punches. As I mentioned earlier, Naruto's Frog Kata attacks could one-shot the Paths of Pain, and what makes this even more impressive is that even after getting hit, Nagato was still questioning what happened, implying that the nature energy Naruto manipulates when he uses Frog Kata is invisible to the Rinnegan. So, if the Rinnegan couldn't detect Frog Kata, it should be pretty much impossible for anyone to tell when Naruto's about to hit them with it. And since his attacks are strong enough to take out even Pain, a regular Frog Kata punch would be more than enough to catch 99% of shinobi completely off guard and one-shot them. Plus, believe it or not, the punch isn't even Naruto's strongest Frog Kata attack, because that honor goes to the Frog Strike. This taijutsu is described in the 4th data book as an inside destruction technique that transmits the power of chakra like a wave to go through the outside surface of the target and attack their insides directly. So, the durability of whoever Naruto targets with the Frog Strike doesn't matter at all, because it would just attack their internal organs directly, kind of like a Sage Mode version of the Gentle Fist. In fact, I would be willing to say that the Frog Strike is even better than the Gentle Fist for most case scenarios, since we see in Neji's fight with Kidomaru that the Gentle Fist is unable to go through Kidomaru's metal, as opposed to the Frog Strike, which traveled through the literal Four Tails' hide. Because of this, Sage Mode Naruto's Frog Strike should be able to go through pretty much every conceivable defense in order to attack the internal organs of his target. This makes the Frog Strike crazy broken, since Kakashi has stated that it's impossible for a shinobi to strengthen their organs, meaning a well-placed hit from Naruto could take out even the strongest shinobi of the verse who don't have significant regeneration, which is why it's honestly one of the most ridiculous abilities in his entire arsenal. Due to this, even though I think KCM Naruto's chakra arms are very useful, I do lean slightly towards Sage Mode taking the category, because the Frog Strike is honestly just ridiculous and not brought up nearly as much as it should be when people talk about fights involving Sage Mode Naruto. Last but not least, the final category is Drawbacks, which is basically just determining the form that has the least amount of downsides and risks associated with using it. I think Sage Mode's downsides are by far the most apparent, because even in the War Arc, where Naruto is skilled enough to no longer have to worry about turning into a toad, his two biggest problems are still the time it takes to gather nature energy, where he's unable to move, and the fact that his Sage Mode doesn't provably last longer than 5 minutes at this point in the series. To be fair, the time it takes to charge up Sage Mode isn't an end-all be-all, since Naruto can create shadow clones to stall his opponent when he absorbs nature energy, which he did do against Madara by having his clones jump him with the Super Odama Rasengan in order for the real Naruto to enter Sage Mode, but this is still far from ideal. And I would argue that Sage Mode running out after 5 minutes or 2 uses of the Rasen Shuriken is an even bigger issue, since we clearly see that a lot of Naruto's fights last way longer than 5 minutes. Keep in mind, most of Naruto's major opponents in the War Arc would slaughter him instantly if he were to revert to base form. So Sage Mode's timer can definitely land Naruto in a sticky situation if he doesn't have a decisive edge over his opponent. On the flip side though, when Naruto is using KCM, it's explained that Kurama is taking his chakra in exchange, which means that if Naruto overuses the form, he literally dies. This may sound like a horrible drawback, but when you think about it, this isn't actually as bad as it sounds. First of all, it's implied that Kurama can only drain Naruto's chakra when he's actively tapped into KCM, and since Naruto obviously gets to decide when he uses the form, he can just take breaks to restore his own chakra. And since we see that Naruto can stay in KCM for hours and hours consecutively without his chakra running out, it's not like his chakra is ever going to hit 0 during a realistic fight. In fact, Naruto could probably fight for damn near an entire day in KCM, and then just sleep it off while in base form to regain all of his chakra. Whereas Sage Mode is still only lasting 5 minutes, unless Naruto has time to prepare in advance, in which case he can make it last 15 using the Shadow Clone strategy he pulled off against Pain. The only other disadvantage for KCM is that the number of Shadow Clones he can make is limited, since Kurama will take an equal amount of chakra from each one, but even this isn't a massive issue in my opinion, because I think the 13 super clones that Naruto made to help the Shinobi Alliance are probably better than just spamming 1,000 low quality clones anyways. After all, the super clones are able to take on the Kage by themselves, whereas when Naruto just tries to make as many as possible, they typically end up just being a distraction. So, I think in terms of drawbacks, KCM definitely has a lot less negatives than Sage Mode, which is why it wins this category. To sum everything up, of the 6 categories, Sage Mode won physical strength, sensory, and abilities, while KCM took power, speed, and drawbacks, leading to a final score of 3-3. Over the years, people have gone back and forth a ton, arguing which form is definitively better, but in my opinion, whether or not KCM is more useful than Sage Mode just relates to the situation at hand, since they're both vastly different forms that excel in particular areas. Thanks for watching. If you want to watch another video by me, make sure to check out this one. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Later!